नमस्कार, सत श्री अकाल, राम राम सा, खम्बाणी, वणक्कम, प्रणाम। आप सभी को ऑल्टरनेट मीडिया में फिर से स्वागत है। हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए हैं पीवीआर नरसिम्हा राव सर, ऑथर, इंजीनियर, एस्ट्रोलॉजर। सर की जो भविष्यवाणी होती है बहुत वायरल होती है, बहुत लोग उससे इंस्पिरेशन लेते हैं, कई लोग कॉपी भी करते हैं, नन दी लेस बट बहुत फेमस होती हैं। एंड पेरियाना के साथ एक चीज़ बहुत अच्छी है कि uh, बहुत वाइडर डोमेन्स में देखते हैं, मतलब बहुत डिटेल जाकर देखते हैं। ही डजंट लुक एट द थिंग्स कि अभी क्या हो रहा है, बट बैकवर्ड फॉरवर्ड लिंकेजेस क्या है, 6 महीने बाद, 8 महीने बाद, इस तरीके से बहुत वाइडर डोमेन में देखते हैं। एंड पीपल वुड एग्री। लोगों को, शायद कई लोगों को फनी लगेगा कि मैं एस्ट्रोलॉजी को जियोपॉलिटिक्स में लेकर आती हूँ, बट ये मानकर चलिए जो प्लैनेट्स होते हैं वो हमारी एनर्जीज को, हमारी वाइब्रेशंस को बहुत इम्पैक्ट करते हैं। दिखते नहीं है, जैसे सन की रेस, जब सूरज उदय होता है तो सन हमें ऐसे रेस दिखाई नहीं देती है, पर रोशनी चारों तरफ होती है। तो देयर लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स which cannot be explained, but those energies can be experienced, those energies can be felt, those vibrations exist. सो फोन की जो वाइब सैटेलाइट चैनल है, इसकी हमें दिखाई नहीं देती है कैसे कनेक्ट करता है, बट कनेक्ट होता है ना फोन। सो सिमिलरली, व्हाई दैट इज व्हाई आई गॉट पेरियाना अगेन टुडे. A lot of things are happening. Next couple of months are very very critical for the world, especially for Bharat and Modi ji. एंड बहुत सारी डेवलपमेंट्स हुई जो अनएक्सपेक्टेडली हुई, जिसपे पेरियाना ने पहले भी कहा था. आई विल हैंड ओवर द स्टेज एंड द प्लेटफॉर्म टू पेरियाना. पेरियाना, वेरी वार्म वेलकम ऑन द स्टेज.
Namaste, Gayatri ji, and namaste to all your viewers. So, when we did the last video, we basically expected a surgical strike by India on Pakistan in the May time frame, and we basically expected a second phase later on, where India will try to strangulate Pakistan and try to unify Kashmir, try to weaken the control of Pakistan over the occupied Kashmir. So the strikes that have happened in the last 3 days as a part of Operation Sindoor, they basically have gone beyond a very simple surgical strike along the lines of what has happened in the previous times. This has there were some apart from the surgical strike. See, Pakistan really reacted badly. If Pakistan took it easy, it would have been just a surgical strike. But Pakistan tried to react to it, and India took advantage of it. So what we have in the end is we have the air bases destroyed, we have the military bases destroyed, we have the air defense capabilities significantly weakened of Pakistan. So now today there is a temporary peace, temporary ceasefire. I'm using the word temporary because officially it's not a ceasefire. It's basically they decided to suspend the firing, and they will. I'm assuming they will continue talking. And astrologically speaking, my assessment is that picture abhi baki hai. This is not the end of it. This is just a pause, in my opinion. This is not the end. And a few things, taking a step back from a very high level, we may have said this in the past also, but for Pakistan, this current decade is terrible. Particularly 2024 to 2029 period is miserable for them, and particularly this year, this Vishwasu lunar year is a terrible year for Pakistan. So this is a year when Pakistan is likely to either break up or strong seeds of Pakistan breaking up into 4 or 5 parts, basically being planted. So along those lines, whatever we have seen in the last 3 days, they really, irrespective of what the propaganda on the social media is, bottom line is Pakistan's defenses have been really weakened, and Pakistan's see, when it comes to parity between Pakistan and India, this is a media construct. Media, because Pakistan is a nuclear power along with India, people basically use a false equivalency between India and Pakistan, especially the global media. But the thing is, if you go back into history, India has always dominated Pakistan. Even in the 1960s, in the previous wars, India was able to advance up to Lahore. But the thing is, because Nehru was idealistic, he withdrew. So India always had a parity advantage when it came to Pakistan, and that has really grown in the last few years, with India becoming a economic superpower, and also India focusing on homegrown military technology as well as getting the right military wares from the right suppliers outside of India, India has the disparity between the two countries has really grown. And I will even dare to say that compared to China, India is actually a very strong superpower. Based on the 1962 scars, people think that India is a much lower power compared to China. But the last few days, and especially how India dealt with the Chinese defense equipment that Pakistan was utilizing, you can see that India is not really less advanced. So, in my assessment, basically, these 3 days, they proved India's capability. And now looking at it astrologically, the May to July time period is a very dicey time period. In general, Vishwavasu year is a very bad year for Pakistan. It shows Pakistan in deep mess and trying to provoke India, and that basically being detrimental to it. That is at a high level. And particularly May, June, April, May, June, July are a terrible time for Pakistan. And in July, we have a Mars Ketu conjunction coming up in the Simha Rasi, and that is a terrible time for Pakistan. And another thing is again, I believe in June or July, there is a Saturn stationary transit. Saturn will become basically he is going forward and he will stop, and then he will start going backwards. So when planets are stationary, they give very powerful results, and that is around 9 degrees Pisces, and that aspects India's Lagna very closely. But the thing is, for India, Saturn is Yokaraka. So Saturn aspecting Lagna is actually very good for India. Whereas for Pakistan, he aspects Rahu. He is the Badakesh in the second house of death for Pakistan. So and Saturn is the other Badakesh for Pakistan's chart. And Saturn will be in the 12th house of loss. So when Saturn is aspecting Rahu very closely, that's a terrible time for Pakistan. So the thing is, and also after our last video, I took a closer look at the fortnightly charts. The fortnightly charts for the next few weeks for Islamabad and New Delhi, they basically do not suggest to me that the current ceasefire will hold. I'm afraid this is just a temporary truce or temporary ceasefire. I'm afraid as a result of whatever happened recently, there will be some revolt within army or some rebellion within the country, and it may also have to do with Imran Khan. Whatever they do to Imran Khan or however Imran Khan is being dealt with, there may be some internal tensions within the country, and there may be some movement against Asim Munir, and that may embolden him to basically take another misstep. So late May or June, July, this time is very dicey. So before mid July, it is likely that the situation will flare up again. And India, when agreeing to the terms of current stoppage of the firing, India basically, it looks like they put a clear condition that any further act will be considered an act of war. Any further terrorist act or any further aggravation from them will be considered an act of war. So I believe India will have an excuse to go harder at Pakistan. And as such, even now, Pakistan's military capability has been significantly weakened. So my assessment is this will flare up again in the next couple of months. And June and July are a very dicey month until basically July, third week of July passes. We can't be sure that this is basically permanent. This is going to hold. So I'm afraid there's going to be more action, and I think that by mid July or third week of July, India will be in a much stronger position. India will basically inflict much more damage to Pakistan. Now, when it comes to the question of whether India will occupy Pakistan, etc., because that's what some people seem to be asking for on social media, some BJP supporters, that I don't expect that to happen, and that's a very unrealistic thing to expect. Even a superpower like US, when they attacked Iraq and when they conquered Iraq after Saddam Hussein's fall, they could not basically control the country. What India should be looking for is to weaken Pakistan significantly so that they can't various terrorist training camps, and Pakistan military capability should be weakened, and create lot of conflict, internal conflict within Pakistan, and wait for it to implode from within. And while that is happening, try to tighten the noose from outside, support the Baloch rebels, and then encourage any rebellion in the Sindh region, and also try to cut off the control of Pakistan in the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So basically use all these techniques to strangle Pakistan from outside and let it implode within, because there are enough forces there. There is a lot of dissatisfaction within the army, and people are fed up, and there is political chaos, there is vacuum. So my thinking is, in the second half of this year and next year, particularly, actually it may happen in the second half of this year itself, it may not even go into this year, because August, September, October, November are terrible for Pakistan. So but the thing is, that may be more of a time of little intervention from outside, but more implosion from within, basically. So uh, so that is what I was expecting in the second phase, and that may still happen. But the thing is, some of the intervention from outside that I was expecting in the second phase in my last video, I believe that has part of it or most of it has already happened in these 3 days, thanks to the poor decisions that Pakistan army has taken in the last few days. So but the thing is, in June July time period, there is still a chance for more military exchange that may weaken Pakistan military further. So my overall assessment at this stage, looking at various charts and looking at the situation on the ground, is that this is just a strategic pause, and India may not have planned to do all the stuff that they have done at this stage. This may be for the long term. But one thing I can guarantee, I strongly believe, based on the chart of India and based on the chart of Modi ji, that they do not want just to do something that is like a putting on a show. They want to solve this problem. They want to solve the problem. They want to basically significantly weaken Pakistan's ability to create trouble in India through terrorism, and take out the terrorist infrastructure of terrorism within Pakistan, and significantly weaken Pakistan, and create a pathway towards breaking up of Pakistan, and also unify Kashmir, because unifying Kashmir is something that I strongly believe Modi government is strongly committed to. And I believe that even before this strike, they had a plan for that, but they probably had to advance some of the plans given Pakistan's reactions. But so to conclude, basically my assessment is Pakistan will make some more missteps, because probably because of some internal pressures, and basically they say vinashakale viparita buddhi. When it is time for your fall, your intellect gets perverted and you take wrong decisions. We saw some of that on account of, on the part of Pakistan in the last few days, and we will see more of it in the coming 2 months, because this is not a good time for Pakistan. Pakistan is likely to take terrible decisions in the coming couple of months, and sometime in late May or more likely June, second week of June, third week of June, that time frame, there'll be more action. But by second or third week of July, India will be in a much stronger position and Pakistan will be in a much weaker position. But I don't expect Pakistan to be occupied by India. I expect India to significantly weaken Pakistan, and then basically set up the situation for it to implode from within, and then work from outside as well as from within, because India has some influence within Pakistan. So that will play out during August, September, October, November, etc. And one more thing is, before 2028, 2029, Pakistan is very likely to break up into 4 or 5 parts. And the Pakistan occupied Kashmir will be unified with the Kashmir that is part of India, that is under control of India even now. So Kashmir will be unified, and that will definitely happen before 28, 29. But there is a good chance that it will happen this year or early next year itself. So that is basically my overall assessment. And whatever agreement, actually, you know what, people say that Trump negotiated it, but more likely I did not expect and still cannot reconcile that Trump and Vance would have put pressure on India. What I expect is Pakistan was in panic, and as I said in my last video, there is no way China would get involved in this war or open a new front on the east, on India's northeast, as some analysts were afraid. That was never going to happen. There is no chance of war between China and India. China will only support them indirectly. They will give them their military wares and use them as a beta testers on the battlefields, and then they will also do social media support, like all the influencing support, basically all the media blitzkrieg, etc. There China will support them indirectly, but not no direct support. So Pakistan probably felt that they are losing and they did not find a way out. So they reached out to India, and when India did not agree, probably they requested US. So that is probably what happened. And India probably agreed to it because this will give them a pause. They can take a stock of the situation, where they fared well, where they can improve, so that for the next step, for the next phase, they can basically plan better. But the picture abhi baki hai. This is not over. So, and one more thing, unfortunately, I see on the media, on the social media, that a lot of my friends, especially BJP supporters, are unhappy that there is peace. See, even Sri Krishna, he went to Kauravas to ask for peace, and Pandavas would settle for 5 villages basically. So, peace is never a bad thing, as long as, see, if peace is accompanied by terrorist activity, terrorist action, that's not acceptable. But the thing is, giving a chance to peace is never a bad thing. But the thing is, as I always say, peace has to be sustainable and dharmic. And my sense is that will not happen unless Pakistan is weakened from within and splits up, and Kashmir is freed from Pakistan. And I do believe that will happen, but it's not necessarily going to happen because India goes and occupies. Indian ground forces uh, storm into Pakistan and occupy Pakistan. That is not the right way, and I did not expect it. I still don't expect it, but that's not needed. We can do it with the optimal amount of force required, and I think we'll see that more in the coming months. And by the end of this year, there'll be a lot more clarity on this. India will have achieved the objectives of this mission, of this Operation Sindoor, by October or November.
Ji. Karina, you mentioned Imran Khan. Now, what
Yes.
about Imran Khan? Because there were also news in between Imran Khan
Yeah.
is dead and things like that. Is
Mhm.
Imran Khan going to be a deadly factor for Asim Munir?
I don't have Imran Khan's chart, but what I see is in Pakistan's chart, annual chart and fortnightly charts, I see a lot of political chaos and lot of unrest, political unrest in Pakistan. And also in the coming couple of years, I see a couple of changes of leadership in Pakistan. So, in other words, Pakistan is now unlikely to have stable leadership in the coming couple of years. It will go through chaos and change of leadership multiple times. So my assessment is the news, the rumor that Imran Khan may have been killed by Asim Munir may not be inaccurate. It may be possible, and either because of that or because of other reasons, because Imran Khan is out, there will be unrest, and that unrest in the coming weeks, and that unrest will force Asim Munir's hand, make him make some really dumb decisions that he and Pakistan will regret. So the thing is, this is a very dicey time. This is not a time of clarity, and this is not a time when things settle down. This is actually a time. This is a very fluid time, and we have more chaos for the rest of May, June, and July. So let's keep fingers crossed. And but one thing I can say is, Indian government, India will make the right decisions. Indian government will think wisely and make the right decisions at every time, and Pakistan will be making bad decisions from time to time. That is what I can expect. And in the end, if India really decides that they want to take a particular step to weaken Pakistan in the June July time frame, I do not really think that China will get involved directly, or US will really pressure India not to do it. So US may US may have played a role this time because India was also willing. India was also willing for ceasefire, for this pause in the action. I like to call it as pause instead of ceasefire. But the thing is, if India is not willing, I don't expect Trump and Vance to put pressure on India, either publicly or privately, to do things in a particular way.
Right. Periana, yeah, what about the Muhurat of Operation Sindoor? Because as far as we know, every date and every time Modi ji chooses has a significance. 10th May was the day of
Yeah.
1857, first time rebellion, if you remember, right? So, what about the Operation Sindoor Muhurat, ji?
Okay, that's a great question. Operation Sindhur Muhurat, see, based on the times, the exact times of all the 9 strikes that were reported on May 7th early morning, the first strike was on Kotli around 1:04 a.m. is the approximate time that was reported in the media. So May 7, 1:04 a.m. And the chart can be cached either for Kotli, where the first strike happened, or you can cache it for Srinagar, from where the strike happened, or even for New Delhi. So the exact degree will change, but the Lagna will be in Makar Rasi. So Makar Lagna rises. So this is a much more favorable chart compared to the Pahalgam attack Muhurat chart. In the Pahalgam attack Muhurat chart, it is Simha Lagna with planetary conglomeration in the 8th house of anxiety, tension, destruction, setbacks, etc. In this case, the Lagna is Makar Rasi, and Makara basically means crocodile. So basically, it shows persistence and perseverance in the mission. And the second thing is, there is a Saturn Venus Rahu combination in the 3rd house of Parakram, in the Parakram Sthan. So, and Saturn Venus combination, it is within a couple of degrees, just a few degrees, and it is giving a very powerful Rajoga, because Venus is Yogkarak and Saturn is Lagnesh. So there is a yoga Rajoga between Yogkarak and Lagnesh, and in the 3rd house of Vikram. So it shows basically strong determination in finishing the mission. But the thing is, there is also a Balarishta in that particular chart. The 7th Lord Moon is in the 8th house. So 7th Lord in the 8th is basically not a, it's a Marak combination. So there is a Balarishta. So that is probably why there is a short pause immediately. But the thing is, the chart itself, the Muhurt itself is very strong, and also it has a strong aspect of Guru. Guru is in the 5th house of Purva Punya, and he is the 3rd Lord of Parakram. He is the Parakramesh, and he is aspecting Lagna within, I think the exact quantity is 87% aspect. So his Drishti, Guru Drishti on Lagna is 87%. So that is close to 100. So my assessment is, they launched that operation with a particular goal, short-term and long-term goal, and the goals will be accomplished. And the goals are very ambitious because of the strength of the Parakram Sthan in the chart, and they will be accomplished. This is a very good muhurt they have. They may not have picked a muhurt per se, but the time they ended up picking ended up being a very good muhurat. That is why I think whatever was agreed today is just a temporary thing, and this will reach its logical end later this year.
Later this year. And Prerna, what about, because since you say the ceasefire is temporary and it's going to go on, how do you see the economy of Bharat? Because see, China is trying to entangle
Mm.
India, or whichever the forces are. There's so many forces who are our enemy right now. Do you think they'll be able to pause or dent the growth of economy of Bharat? Because that is what they are after. Ji.
No, I don't think there will be an impact of this war on Indian economy. Moreover, when the hostilities resume in, let's say, late May or more likely June or July, again I don't expect it to go on for a long time. There will be targeted strikes. Every provocation from Pakistan will be used strategically by India to weaken certain infrastructure within Pakistan, and they haven't really gone after the nuclear infrastructure this time, except for one particular strike. They may, in the next phase, they may do that more, go after some of the nuclear infrastructure, so that Pakistan's nuclear ability will be neutered. In general, this thing called nuclear, having the nuclear arsenal and basically nuclear deterrence is kind of overrated. If you are weak just because you have nuclear weapons, you don't really get any deterrence. So India will kind of proved in the last 3 days, but India will prove that nuclear deterrence is just a textbook idea. It's not a real idea. But the thing is, it can be done better if some of the nuclear infrastructure is weakened, and I expect that India will do that in the next time. But the thing is, even the next phase in June, July is likely to be very targeted at weakening Pakistan's infrastructure, military infrastructure, not really like ground invasion of Pakistan, etc. So the thing is that that will not be really long. That will not go on for months and months. That's a short time. So the impact on the economy will be very low. And whatever happens later on in the second half of the year, after the Independence Day, August, September, October, November, that is more likely to be more covert operations rather than an explicit war. So again, there won't be much impact on the economy. Having said that, in general, second half of this year is challenging for world economy. So whatever impact world economy is going through, India also will go through it. But the thing is, it will be at the same level, or India will actually do better than the rest of the world. So I don't expect any conflict with Pakistan to have an impact on Indian economy. That is one assessment. And coming to China, China may have, see, this whole thing I think is actually provoked by Chinese deep state, the CCP, Chinese Communist Party. But the thing is, I think their economy will actually struggle worse than the world economy. India will be higher than the world economy is in general struggling this year, and Indian economy will be better, and Chinese economy will actually do worse than the world economy. This is a really terrible year for China. And one thing is, for Chinese economy, some of the defense equipment that they sell is part of their economy. And unfortunately, the last 3 days did a lot of damage to the stock. But apart from it, astrologically,
US economy also Periana, because F-16s have also gone down badly. Yeah.
yeah, US will also suffer along with the world, but US will be at parity with the world, and India will be actually better than the world, and China will be worse than the world in my assessment in terms of economy in the second half of this year. In general, Vishwavasu is not a great year for world economy. But having said that, it's not because of the war. The war, Modi government will be very smart to limit the scope of war and have strategic objectives, and basically don't just use brute force. Use brute force where needed in a targeted way, and then take out Pakistan through implosion in the rest of the year.
Right. Ji. Thank you so much, Periana, for joining. Would you like to add anything on a concluding note,
Just
Periana?
one thing I want to add. The thing is, as I said, I expect this to be temporary. But whether this is temporary, even if my assessment is wrong and this really holds, bottom line is, this is not a great year. This is a challenging year. Next few months are challenging for the world and also for India. So please pray to gods for the victory of India and victory of Dharma. Moreover, any peace that is not dharmic and sustainable is not worth it. So we really need sustainable and dharmic peace. So either worship Durga, whatever prayer you know, please pray to Mother Durga or Kartikeya or Subramanya or Skanda or Hanuman, like Hanuman Chalisa, etc., or Narasimha Swami. If you can worship one of these devatas whenever you can for the next few months, it will help India. It will help establish Sanatan Dharma in the Indian subcontinent, and also establish a sustainable and dharmic peace in the Indian subcontinent. So please pray for sustainable peace, not just any peace, but sustainable peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Periana, for joining. Periana का जो YouTube channel है and the website where he teaches about how to do havan या होमा जैसे वो कहते हैं, I'll link it in the chat box. Please go and like, subscribe and share there also. He does very less videos, but very, very important and very, very beautiful videos, very, very important and spiritual videos. So please go and like, subscribe that also. And if you want to get connected with me, you want to share some information, some kind of points, so सभी के सभी links description box में, और अगर आप contribute करना चाहते हैं फी, तो UPI और number दोनों screen के ऊपर है. इसी के साथ जय हिंद, जय श्री राम, हर हर महादेव. Thank you so much.
Jai Hind, Jai Shri Ram, Har Har Mahadev.